was a terrorist organization. I suppose it still is, though they're losing influence day by day. Somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 people have died in eastern Turkey because of the activities of the PKK. When people inspired by Mr. Gülen decided to establish these institutions in eastern Turkey, one of the things they noticed was the kids were no longer, as they said, going to the mountains. Instead, they were going to school. They saw for themselves a different possibility. They saw for themselves a chance to make something good of their lives, and so they didn't feel the need to join the terrorists in the mountains. So, my final question, can we adopt this as a model for other places? In particular, can we do this in America? Well, my initial response when I thought of this question is, well, I don't see why we can't do that. I don't see why I couldn't get together with other businessmen and other men in my community and say, and women of course, and say, what's the biggest problem in Lubbock, Texas? What can we do to address it? How much are we willing to commit here? How much of our income are we willing to put into this? Should we build a school in East Lubbock, which is the poor part of town? Should we maybe build dormitories for poor rural kids to come into Lubbock and go to a good school? Should we build a university? I mean, should we build a hospital? Probably not. There's like 8 hospitals in Lubbock, a town of 200,000. I never have understood that. Anyway, in principle, there doesn't seem to be any barrier to us undertaking this kind of action. Let me return back to that teacher in Elazığ, that football. Could we be that dedicated to what we're doing? Could we have teachers of that kind that can make that kind of difference to their students? Perhaps, perhaps. But does it require religious faith? I guess I would be inclined to say it doesn't require Islam in particular. I think a Christian or a Jew or even a Buddhist could generate that kind of commitment because of commitment to the very same universal human values. How about an agnostic or an atheist? This is a question close to my heart because I am an agnostic. And I'm inspired by Mr. Gülen. I'm inspired by the other members of the movement. I want to be a part of this thing. Is it possible for me to commit that deeply to something? Well, I'd like to say, let's try it. Let's find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. Our last speaker is Dr. Yektin Yıldırım. He received his PhD from the University of Texas at Austin, and he also completed a doctoral portfolio in dispute resolution, focusing on Islam and conflict resolution at the same university. He serves as a vice president at the IID, and he published articles related to Islamic perspectives on education, childhood, and dialogue. And he's going to present a paper titled Gülen's Methods of Interfaith Dialogue and Comparative Approach.
Thank you very much, Doğan. So first, let me give you a summary of what I will be talking today about my presentation. First, I will talk about why we are talking about Fethullah Gülen. Then I will talk about the motivations for dialogue for both of them. Then I will talk about Aranzi's method, and he has this concept of 4 different categories of interfaith dialogue. I will briefly talk about this concept. Then I will talk about Gülen's approach. Today I will specifically talk about Gülen's approach when we talk about the interfaith dialogue on action. And that's why I will talk about Writers and Journalists Foundation, because it was the pioneer organization for the rest of the interfaith dialogue organizations which were as inspired by the teachings of Fethullah Gülen. Interfaith dialogue is often understood as a method of diffusing conflicts between cultures and advancing peace throughout the world by emphasizing the common values shared by competing belief systems. In order for interfaith dialogue to effectively bring resolution to violent social fermentations, the dialogue must account for both the common and the unique claims made by different religions. Many religious leaders have advocated this form of dialogue, and over the past half century, formal interfaith encounters have provided examples of the benefits of peaceful coexistence. Fethullah Gülen is an eminent Turkish scholar who is a source of inspiration for many of the Islamic interfaith dialogue organizations. His writings have motivated his supporters to establish schools, cultural and media activities, and dialogue projects around the world. The Gulen Movement is based on his central ideas, dialogue, tolerance, and a focus on common values between religions. And this is the actually essence of the method of the interfaith dialogue that we see in the teachings of Fethullah Gülen. For the Catholic community, on the other hand, Francis Arenzi, Cardinal Arenzi, has emerged as a leader in the area of interfaith dialogue when he was appointed president of the Vatican's Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue by Pope John Paul in 1984. So right now we are talking about Arenzi's teachings, and he was a very important figure during the Pope John Paul. Cardinal Arenzi worked throughout the world to improve the relationship between the Catholic Church and other religions. In addition to prominent leadership of Gülen and Arenzi, the group of Islamic authorities and scholars who together formed the Interfaith Initiative, A Common Word, have become a decisive force in establishing opportunities for dialogue. Also, Pope Benedict, despite his occasional clumsy phrasing, has made significant effort to meet with leaders of various religions and engage in interfaith dialogue. A quick survey of the work of these contemporary leaders reveals both the promise and the challenge of interfaith dialogue for the globalized world. And with this, I want to move into the concept of what are the motivations for dialogue. And in this area, we see that for Gülen, it's a must, especially in this age of globalization. A dialogue, interfaith dialogue, intercultural dialogue is a must in our time. And he sees that this is reconciliation of the material and spiritual world, and that is the method where we can start the concept of interfaith dialogue. And without having this reconciliation between the material and spiritual world, we cannot be successful in this work. So I will briefly talk about that. Then I will move into the Cardinal Arenzi's teachings on this issue. And also he talks about global instability, and he believes that interfaith dialogue is a social tool for resolving conflicts. And he says that it's a light of social enrichment. And today in the morning, in the first session, when I was listening Dr. John Hogan, he made that comment, meeting with, for example, Fethullah Gülen, it was an enlightenment for him. So I see very similar concept in the teachings of Cardinal Arenzi. Fethullah Gülen and Cardinal Arenzi have both made significant efforts to promote interfaith dialogue between Islam and Catholicism. Both leaders seek the same balance of uniqueness and commonality, but are motivated by slightly different understandings of what interfaith dialogue should be. These differences help to illuminate the various ways in which dialogue can function in society and demonstrate the value of collaborations between different religious perspectives. For Gülen, interfaith dialogue begins with the individual reconciliation of the material and spiritual world. This reconciliation is an internal process and gives birth to tolerance. Religion is directly linked to this reconciliation. The various groups in the religious sector must first be at peace with themselves before any other form of